I never imagined the man I loved more than life itself could betray me so completely. One ordinary evening, a message appeared on his phone, a message that shattered my world in an instant. The truth I uncovered wasn't just heartbreaking, it was life-altering. I felt my dreams, my marriage, everything crumble before my eyes. But what happened next changed everything, and the courtroom became the battlefield where I discovered strength I never knew I had. Sophie had always believed in love. Married for 7 years to Daniel, a charming and successful man, she thought their bond was unbreakable. They shared dreams, a cozy home in Brisbane, and plans for a future filled with laughter and family holidays. Yet, beneath the surface of smiles and morning coffee rituals, a storm was quietly brewing. It began with little signs, secretive phone calls, hushed conversations, and sudden late-night outings he couldn't explain. Sophie, ever trusting, brushed them off, convincing herself that love was enough to weather any storm. But the night of her discovery changed everything. One evening, while Daniel was in the shower, Sophie's curiosity, and perhaps intuition, got the better of her. She picked up his phone, her heart racing, and opened a message thread that was never meant for her eyes. The words she read cut deeper than any knife. Daniel had been betraying her trust amongst that I never thought a single moment could turn my entire world upside down. That night, everything felt ordinary at first, just another quiet evening at home. Daniel had gone to the bathroom, and I was scrolling through my phone, mindlessly checking messages, when something made me glance at his. I told myself it was curiosity, maybe even an irrational suspicion, but deep down, I think I already knew I wouldn't like what I would find. My hand shook as I picked it up, a cold wave of dread settling over me. The first message I opened seemed innocent at first glance, but as I read further, my chest tightened, my vision blurred with tears I didn't realize I had been holding back for months. There were conversations, exchanges, pictures, all pointing to a reality I had been blind to for far too long. Daniel, my husband, the man I loved more than anything, had been seeing someone else. Not a fleeting flirtation, not a minor indiscretion, but a full, deliberate betrayal that spanned months. The messages weren't hidden under passwords or disguise. They were right there, in plain sight, as if he had no fear that I would ever find out. I felt frozen, my mind refusing to process the words. Each message was a knife twisting in my chest, cutting away at memories I had cherished so dearly. I thought about the mornings he kissed me goodbye, the evenings we spent laughing over dinner, the quiet weekends we shared binge-watching movies. Were those moments ever real? Or were they just part of the carefully constructed lie he had been living while leading another life behind my back? The thought made bile rise in my throat, and I had to sit down, phone still in hand, trying to steady my shaking fingers. I could hear the water running in the bathroom, the ordinary hum of the world outside our little home, and it felt almost surreal. How could this ordinary life I had built, brick by brick, unravel so completely in a single night? I wanted to confront him immediately, to scream, to demand an explanation, but something held me back. Part of me was terrified of what I might hear. Another part, I think, was trying to preserve the fragments of my dignity, the last pieces of control I had left in a situation that was spiraling out of my grasp. As I scrolled further, the messages revealed more than just a secret affair. They revealed deception, manipulation, and planning. Daniel had not only been seeing her, but he had also been lying to cover it up, weaving an intricate web of excuses and alibis, thinking I would never catch on. I felt a wave of rage mixed with despair. Anger coursed through me, hot and sharp, threatening to burn through the numbness that had overtaken me. How could the man who vowed to be my partner, my confidant, my everything, betray me in such a way? How could he look at me every day and maintain the illusion of love while hiding this truth in the shadows of our home? I remember the tears coming then, unbidden and unstoppable. They fell silently, dripping onto the phone in my hands, smudging the screen, as if even the device itself mourned with me. I thought about all the times I had trusted him completely, every secret I had shared, every hope I had confided. And now, it all felt like a cruel joke. My love, my loyalty, my belief in us, it had been taken for granted, tossed aside, replaced with deception. My mind raced through every detail of our life together, trying desperately to pinpoint signs I might have missed. Was it the late nights he claimed were work-related? The subtle defensiveness whenever I asked about his day? The occasional distant look, like he was somewhere else entirely? Every memory I revisited now carried the bitter sting of betrayal. How could I have been so blind? I asked myself this over and over, the question echoing in my mind like a haunting refrain that would not let me rest. And yet, even in that darkness, a small spark of resolve began to flicker. I realized that while he had stolen my trust, he could not take my strength. I could feel the shift within me, the part of me that refused to crumble, that demanded action. I knew that confronting him would be excruciating, but I also knew that pretending nothing had happened was no longer an option. I could no longer allow my life, my home, my heart to be controlled by his lies. I needed clarity. I needed truth. And, above all, I needed to reclaim the control he had stripped away from me. When Daniel finally emerged from the bathroom, I could barely look at him without my emotions bubbling over. I confronted him, my voice quivering yet firm, each word a mixture of pain, fury, and disbelief. He tried to deny it at first, then stumbled through excuses, his confidence cracking under the weight of the evidence in my hand. But I had seen enough. I knew the truth. And in that moment, I also knew that my life would never be the same again. The nights that followed were some of the longest and hardest I have ever experienced. Sleep eluded me, replaced by a constant replay of messages, lies, and shattered trust. I felt a profound loneliness, as though the person I thought I knew, the man I had shared my entire adult life with, had vanished, leaving behind only shadows and echoes. I cried for the marriage I thought I had, for the future that would never be, and for the innocence I had lost. But even in my despair, I began to see the faint outlines of something else: empowerment. Betrayal had left scars, yes, but it also lit a fire within me that could not be extinguished. I began documenting everything: dates, messages, conversations, moments of deceit, creating a record not just of myself, but for the justice I knew I deserved. I realized that while he had taken my trust, he could not take my dignity or my voice. I could fight back, not just emotionally, but legally, if I chose. Friends and family soon became my pillars. Sharing the truth with them was difficult, humiliating even, but their support reminded me that I was not alone in this fight. They helped me see that betrayal is never the victim's fault, that love betrayed does not equal weakness. Slowly, I started to regain a sense of myself outside of my marriage, outside of the lies that had trapped me. The realization that betrayal was not the end of my story, but rather the beginning of a new chapter, began to take hold. It was terrifying, yes, to face a life that was unknown and uncertain, but it was also liberating. I could now make decisions based solely on what I needed and deserved. I could rebuild trust, not in him, but in myself. I could reclaim my home, my happiness, and my future. Every day, every sleepless night, every moment of heartbreak became a building block in the fortress of my resilience. Betrayal had tested me in ways I could never have imagined, but it had also revealed a strength I never knew I possessed. I understood now that love is not just about giving. It is also about protecting your own heart, your own integrity. I would not let his choices define me or dictate the course of my life. And as I looked at the phone one last time before returning it to its place, I felt a mixture of sorrow and determination. The man I married had betrayed me, yes, but I had survived it. I had witnessed the darkest side of someone I trusted, and yet I remained unbroken. The journey ahead would be difficult, filled with legal battles, emotional healing, and the slow, sometimes painful reclamation of my life. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty: I would emerge stronger, wiser, and more courageous than ever before. I had been betrayed, yes, but I had also been awakened. And that awakening, painful as it was, would ultimately be my salvation. The day I decided to take legal action, my stomach felt like it had turned into a knot of steel. I had spent nights crying, nights replaying the betrayal in my mind, nights questioning every choice I had ever made. But sitting in the lawyer's office, facing the reality of what I was about to do, a strange sense of determination settled over me. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my voice. I had been silent for too long, and now silence was no longer an option. My lawyer, a kind yet firm woman named Margaret, listened patiently as I recounted every detail. The lies, the messages, the manipulations. With every word I spoke, I felt a weight lifting off my chest, as if finally telling the truth aloud was a first step toward freedom. Margaret assured me that the law could help, that the court could recognize a betrayal and protect my rights. But she was honest too. The process would be grueling, emotionally draining, and nothing short of exhausting. Yet, the thought of facing Daniel in court, holding him accountable for the pain he had caused, ignited a fire I hadn't felt since the night I discovered his betrayal. The first hearing was a whirlwind of nerves and tension. Walking into the courtroom, I felt exposed, as though every person present could see the raw wound I carried in my heart. Daniel was there too, his usual confident smile faltering slightly under the scrutiny of the law. I remember sitting on the bench, gripping the edge of the chair so tightly that my knuckles turned white, and feeling a surge of resolve. This was my moment. Not to cry, not to beg, but to stand tall and let the truth speak for itself. Evidence had to be presented meticulously. Every message, every date, every lie had to be documented, verified, and laid bare before the judge. I watched as Daniel squirmed under questioning, trying desperately to twist the story, to paint himself as innocent, or at least as misunderstood. But the truth had weight, and it was heavier than any lie he could fabricate. The court became a stage for truth and deception, and for the first time since discovering his betrayal, I felt the scales tipping in my favor. The emotional toll was enormous. Each hearing dredged up memories I had tried to bury, forcing me to relive the heartbreak and humiliation. I cried, yes, but I also became stronger with each tear. Friends and family were a lifeline, accompanying me to court, holding my hand during recesses, reminding me that I was not alone. I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's facing fear head-on, step by trembling step. There were moments of doubt, moments when I questioned whether I could endure the pain of confronting Daniel day after day, of exposing our private life to strangers. But then I reminded myself why I was doing this. This wasn't just about punishment. It was about justice, clarity, and reclaiming control over a life that had been hijacked by lies. Each piece of evidence I presented, each fact I spoke aloud, was a declaration. My life was mine, and I would no longer be defined by his betrayal. By the final hearing, I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and empowerment. Standing in front of the judge, recounting my journey, I realized something profound. The courtroom wasn't just a place to settle legal disputes. It was a crucible that forged a stronger, braver version of myself. Daniel's betrayal had been devastating, yes, but facing it publicly, with honesty and courage, had given me something far greater, the knowledge I could survive anything, and that the law could be a shield for those brave enough to seek it. Walking out of the courtroom that day, the weight on my shoulders felt lighter. I had faced the storm, and while the battle wasn't easy, I had proven to myself that justice was possible,